A declaration of sovereignty. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to define the political and historical relationship which has connected them with another, and to reassume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and creation entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to make such a clarification. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all mankind are created equal, that they are endowed by creation with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among people, deriving their just powers only from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right and obligation of the affected people to alter, abolish, or separate from it, and to re-establish themselves, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments and relationships long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all human experience has shown that mankind is more disposed to suffer while the injustices are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing that which they have grown accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same course, evinces a design to reduce human beings to a mere resemblance of a proud people under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such governments and to provide new measures for their security. Such has been the patient sufferance of entire generations of the people of the Six Nations, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter what has become of their relationship to the New York State and United States governments. The history of executives, legislators, and judges of these governments is a history of repeated injuries, usurpations, and deceit, all having in direct object the unlawful occupation of native lands and the eradication of First Nations as distinct autonomous societies. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to a candid world. The government of the state of New York and the United States have combined together and with others to subject our people to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For developing national policies including extermination, removal, assimilation, and termination with regard to Native people. For directly and indirectly allowing for the unlawful occupation of native lands and the theft of natural resources. For forcing the state religion upon them, denying their use of their own language and the belief and practice of their own culture. For abrogating their own supreme laws of the land, altering on every occasion promises made by the United States regarding territorial boundaries, land use, and sovereignty. For attempting to denationalize us by forcing U.S. citizenship upon us. For abusing our children with a policy of kill the Indian, save the man through the use of residential schools, forever altering generations. For cutting off trade with all parts of the world, including in and amongst our own territories. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. For forcing our people into their courts and thereby depriving us of a trial by a jury of our peers. For imprisoning our people for conduct in our own territories and claiming such conduct to be crimes against the United States. For ignoring our own power to legislate and declaring themselves invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. For historically coercing, corrupting, and deceiving our representatives, and in many cases appointing our representatives for us. For keeping among us an unwarrantable police presence, without the consent and against the will of our people. For designing specific military plans for the invasion of our territories, a la Gallant Piper, including the requisition of body bags and ambulatory services. For developing the concept of federal Indian law, which applies case law from one native territory to another, completely disregarding the distinct status of our nations and the relationships to not only the United States, but the international community in general. For reducing the obligations made in treaties to welfare and arbitrary acts of charity. for adopting policies that encourage socialism in our communities and discourage the private sector development of our economies, for developing self-serving concepts including quasi-sovereign, domestic dependent nation, ward custodian relationship, and then treating them as accepted and established law, for claiming that the U.S. Constitution vests Congress with plenary powers over the affairs of sovereign nations and that our own sovereign powers are subject to the plenary powers of Congress, for destroying the natural beauty and integrity of our homelands, condemning the air, water, and soil, destroying the game and vegetation that existed in harmony since time immemorial. Representatives from New York State and the United States have misstated history, law, and fact for the sole purpose of causing dissension and hostility among their people against our people. The formation of citizen groups calling for the abolishment of U.S. Indian treaties, all native land claims, and the recognition of our sovereign territories has begun. Tension between native and non-native peoples in some communities is at a modern-day high. By and large, the good people of New York State and the United States have remained our friends. Together with people from all around the world, they support our efforts and continue to recognize our sovereignty. Our presence alone, however, is not a strong enough reminder of our history. We must therefore promulgate our position, our standing, our autonomy, and in the oldest of ways, offer to clean the eyes of those who cannot see injustice, clean the ears of those who cannot hear the appeals of others, and clear the throats of those who cannot speak the truth. We, therefore, the people of the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Tuscarora, and Seneca Nation, appealing to the peoples of the earth, declare that we are of right and indeed have always been a sovereign people. We reject any assumption of subjugation, including any misconceptions regarding our citizenship. We are and always have been the people that constitute our respective nations and claim no other. We define our sovereignty as the right or power to have independent authority not affiliated with other controlling entities. We affirm our relationship to the United States and to the rest of the world as defined in the Turo Wampum, and disclaim and or dissolve any political connection to anyone that supports behavior contrary to mutual respect, non-interference, and not conducive to a peaceful and prosperous journey on the river of life.